Hello everyone. Welcome to those who haven't been here before. Welcome back to those who have watched before. Thanks for coming again. My name is Leah Langley, and we're here to discuss the books I read in December 2025. I read 7 books in December. I'm coming to you in January 2026 now, but it's been a busy start to the year, so happy to finally be able to sit down and talk over these 7 books that I read in December. Let's just dive right in as we can get through all of these. The first book I read in December 2025, and the 56th book overall, is The Sum of Us: What Racism Cost Everyone and How We Could Prosper Together by Heather McGhee. This is an excellent book, really great one. This is one of those books that's in, I always mention, that stack of books that I bought and I talked about a couple times at the beginning of this, of 2025 rather, that I wanted to make sure I got through. And I got through all of them this month, so we'll have 2 more that we'll go over soon. But this one was an excellent one in that stack. So glad to have read it. Excellent eye-opening. It made me really reflect deeply on my own life and what I want to do and where I want to be involved and things like that. And McGee's central argument in the book is that racism doesn't just harm the people it targets, but it literally undermines society as a whole. And our central argument here is both compelling and urgent. She shows over and over that ways in which we are hurting ourselves for no good reason, and that we all lose when inequality is allowed to persist as it has. What makes this book so striking is how McGhee blends research, personal stories, and historical analysis to show the hidden cost of racism. She explains not just the social and emotional toll, but also the economic consequences. Reading this becomes impossible to ignore that systemic racism doesn't just harm Black and brown communities. It comes at a cost to everyone, sometimes even more for the very people who think that they benefit from it. As McGhee points out in this book, racism can backfire on those who uphold it, and the so-called benefits are often illusions that mask as real losses. The book resonates strongly alongside other important works that with similar themes that I've read this year even. I thought a lot of Dying of Whiteness by Jonathan M. Metzl. Abundance had some things in there from Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson, that book. Homelessness is a Housing Problem that I just read in November. The Whiteness of Wealth by Dorothy A. Brown. And Caste by Isabel Wilkerson. That I think Caste is a book. Anyway, I'm going to talk about Caste maybe a little bit later. I already talked about, let me focus on this book. But a lot of those things were, all those things were kind of similar, like I said, kind of similar feelings in some of the books, and it was resonating strongly with that overall. I'm going to just actually mention what I was saying about Caste. In general, as I kind of mentioned already when I read that book in the summer, Caste is a book I think touches so many different books that I read, has similar things that I can call back to Caste for, and it's a book everyone should read, honestly, as I believe The Sum of Us is a book everyone should read as well. Together with these books, it makes it clear that much of what we accept as normal in our society, inequality, segregation, and deliberate policies that disadvantage certain groups, does not have to be this way. Structural racism is a choice, and it's one that society collectively pays for. McGee's work is a powerful reminder that the solutions are within reach if we are willing to act and work together. Thinking about, again, Abundance by Thompson and Klein. The stuff is there for us to reach for it, but we have to actually work together. The Sum of Us is both hopeful and urgent. It challenges us to rethink the systems we participate in, to recognize the hidden cost of racism, and to imagine a world where solidarity and equality benefit everyone. This is a book that made me think harder, feel more deeply, and consider how I can contribute to real change. It's necessary, enlightening, and ultimately a call to action for all of us. And I didn't say this at the beginning as I should have. I gave this a 5 out of 5. Excellent book. I thought it was really, really strong. And yeah, really great book. That was book 56 for the year, but the first one for December. Our next one here is one I kind of stumbled upon on Twitter. Believe it or not, I still call it Twitter, and I will not stop calling it Twitter. It is called The Feminine Mistake: Are We Giving Up Too Much by Leslie Bennett. This is a book, I saw a tweet online, and it ended up actually coming back to me kind of later after I finished this book. Some woman was talking about how, I'm going to read the tweet here, and I'll put it on the screen as well. At this point, it's only hubris for women to believe being a stay-at-home mother for years and years while a man builds his social capital and wallet up would ever be beneficial to her. They think they are so different from the millions of women that have been burned in the same situation, like a sad face. Someone quote tweeted the book and quote tweeted the tweet and said, "I make all my girls, nieces, aunties, etc. read this book, married or not, a must." And she put a picture of the book, and from there, I just grabbed the book from my library. I got it at my library, and I read it in a couple of days, and it's a great read. I gave it a 4 out of 5. It's an important read, especially for women, but I really think for everybody. Leslie Bennett's challenges the idea that opting out of the workforce is a harmless or empowering choice, highlighting the real risks of financial dependence and lost autonomy. Bennett makes her position clear, maintains a non-judgmental tone throughout, and offers a balanced view, encouraging honest consideration. At the bare minimum, at least consider it. Don't just fall into, what you think society is saying. Whether you agree with her or not, this book sparks necessary conversations about work, security, and choice. Overall, to answer the question of the subtitle, are we giving up too much? Yes, we are. We are giving up too much, and Bennett lays it out here in the ways that it is that they are. And as I said, kind of that tweet kind of came up again for me, because after a couple days after I read this book, there was this, if you're on TikTok, you might have seen, there was this woman who, similar to that original tweet, saying so many people think they're not going to be burned the way other people have been. A woman who has been a stay-at-home mother for years. Her husband recently told her that he wanted a divorce and said, stop using the cards, whatever. And we found out, she said in her TikTok comments, I signed a prenup and waived alimony, all these kind of things. And she was saying, I never thought this would happen to me, yada, yada. This is what I'm saying, not even just in those situations, but even in other situations, you have to kind of prepare yourself in ways. You have to kind of be, people don't want to enter situations thinking things are going to, fall or go down. And that's not even just where Bennett is coming from in this book, but there's so many things you have to really consider, and it's never you until it is. So think about these things. And again, this book, I think, at the bare minimum, will encourage people to have necessary conversations within themselves and their relationships and their friend groups, whatever it happens to be. And I think for that alone, that's a really great thing. So yeah, that was book 57 for the year and book 2 in December 2025. All right, book 58 for December 2025 and third for that 58 for 2025 and number 3 for December 2025 is Why Nations Fail, The Origins of Power, Prosperity, and Poverty by Darren Akinmoloyu, and James A. Robinson. Another one of those books that was in this stack. And I'm showing the kind of length of it because this was some of my critique of the book. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. Now, I don't mind a long book, as I was just talking about Caste. Caste is quite a thick book, and it's right behind me, right in the corner there. You see where my thumb is. That's right there. And I plan on reading that book again in 2026. I don't mind a long book. I read long books as we go. But this book, I think I opened up, they had lots of some of the length has to do with some of the lovely maps and charts and other things in here that they put. It's lovely that way. But this book, part of my critique of it was kind of like it was going on too much. It presents a compelling premise and an important theory about how institutions shape a country's prosperity or poverty. I found the beginning especially engaging, with clear examples and an accessible entry into the author's ideas. It asks and answers a lot of questions that many of us have, and that is good. Like, again, why are countries prosperous? Why are countries impoverished? All those kind of things. But as the book went on, it began to feel repetitive and longer than necessary. While the economic history is thorough and often informative, the narrative momentum faded for me a lot. I still consider it a valuable read for its framework and the historical scope that it offers. Like, it really goes back and to show you this step, into these specific areas. So that's really obviously valuable in those kind of beginning pages. But even though I didn't enjoy it as much as I'd hoped, again, I still think it's valuable. For the framework, as I mentioned. And I appreciate what the book is trying to do, but I do wish the execution had been more concise and consistently engaging. That was my critique with it. But again, as I mentioned, it was in one of those stacks of books those stacks of books, by the way, I asked some people about what to read, but also I was looking up specific texts, like what do I read, and I want to read these kind of certain things. And this was definitely in there, and I can see why it was, but that was just my experience with it. All right. Next up here, 4th book for December 2025 and 59th overall is The Velvet Rope Economy, How Inequality Became Big Business by Nelson Schwartz. This was a really, really great book. I gave this a 4 out of 5, but I honestly was veering on a 4.5 out of 5 or a 5 out of 5. I settled on a 4, but this is a really great book, and I really enjoyed reading this one. And it was quite refreshing coming right off Why Nations Fail to kind of jump right into this one, because it was constantly captivating, just like from beginning to end. Yeah, it was excellent. Had at several points, though, in this book, I had to stop and remind myself that this book was published over 5 years ago. It was published literally on March 2nd, 2025. Just before the velvet rope economy managed to get even worse. There were specific points in this book. One I noticed like right away. We were talking all about like amusement parks and all those kind of things, and like the history of like fast passes and like paying for like skipping the line and things like that, and how Disney has stayed above everybody else and they haven't charged. They have like a base fast pass that you can get. Everyone gets it for free the ticket if you go to Disney World in Orlando, and yada yada yada. And they've not done it, and they're sticking to their roots. And I remember reading that and like, Disney definitely charges for fast pass. What are you talking about? I was just there last year. They charged for fast pass at Disneyland. And I obviously I would go to Disneyland, you know, a decent amount when I was a child. And I wasn't paying for them, I didn't know, but I know they had fast pass then. And anyway, I remember in that book, in that moment, I highlighted and said like, yeah, Disney charges now. And like, I broke down like all the tiers they have now. They actually just announced some new tiers even since I had been there. Anyway, so I was kind of like, that was a moment I was like, yeah, this was published in 2020. As I mentioned, things have gotten a lot worse now in this almost 6 years that this book has published, as anybody who's awake would realize. So reading that section after knowing what we're at now was kind of like almost darkly funny, because boy, has that changed. The book echoes many ideas I've encountered in other works, such as The System by Robert Reich, which I have right here, The Meritocracy Trap, which I have right here as well. Great books. Schwartz takes us inside and outside the velvet rope. Inside, he looks at envy, exclusivity, ease, access, and security. And outside, he looks at exclusion, division, and isolation. And he lays out what is, and again, what has only gotten worse since publishing. Basically, like, this is what it's like. Here, are you in or out? He covers several topics, but one in particular, Schwartz notes how is this often shied away from, but one of the most crucial benefits and worst outcomes if you're outside of it is healthcare / concierge medicine. Now, you might not know what that is, but essentially, and Schwartz lays this out in this book, in concierge medicine, and before I even go to that, healthcare in general, even as having healthcare access I believe healthcare is a human right. I live in the United States where not everyone gets help. We don't have universal healthcare here. But even something like healthcare, that's such a privilege that people can have, and to not have to worry about where they're going to go if they happen to have, you know, a problem or whatever it happens to be. So there's that piece, of course. But concierge medicine is this new, I wouldn't even say new, it's this growing, what is it called, industry that essentially is ultra rich people can pay a doctor, almost like you pay a lawyer. You have a lawyer on even if you don't have a court case against you, I'm going to pay my lawyer, the retainer, and they'll be available to me whenever I need them. They have that now for doctors. And essentially you can get treated in all types of different ways. Even in a hospital system, we're talking about how like, oh yeah, at the hospital in Stanford, they put a little red ribbon on the bed to know that this is a VIP you're dealing with, because obviously around Stanford is Silicon Valley, those kind of things. So like, this is a VIP. Little things they can do either in situations like that when you're like in a hospital, or again actually having your own concierge doctor that will come to your home, or you go to their private office and yada yada whatever. Those kind of things. Think about, he's giving examples of, so if someone has terminal cancer and you need like to be diagnosed or treated right away, if I don't have to wait in a long line of figuring out when I can get in because I have this access, that is the difference between life and death, and it's a very big business, and it's thing that's been going on. He talks about all types of other little things as well, like everyday experiences that most of us recognize: boarding a plane, applying to schools, navigating services with, you know, clearly tiered access, all those kind of things that we all could just like walk around and we realize, okay, there's a line for us, there's a line for them, those kind of things. But what makes this book work so well is how clearly it names a system many of us feel we don't always know how to have the language for. This book is smart, it's unsettling, and even more relevant now than when it was written. And it was really Really, really great read. It's one I really, really highly recommend. Great one. I want to take a little quick pause on that because like I mentioned, these were the last 3 books in my stack of books. Actually, we'll just grab them now. Why not just pull them up? I have them all here. I had these 6. How did I have one more? Oh yeah, it just fell. Enjoy the interlude. Those bottom 3 were the last in my stack of books that I bought at the beginning of 2025. I think beginning 2025. I won't even put a month on it. And I was like, I want to, following the year, I want to make sure I read these this 2025. I got through all of them. We have The System, Robert Reich, The Whiteness of Wealth, Dorothy A. Brown, Give People Money, Annie Lowry, The Meritocracy Trap, Daniel Markovits, The Velvet Rope, as I just talked about, Nelson Schwartz, Why Nations Fail, Akimoloju and Robinson, and The Sum of Us, McGee. I'm happy to get through those. I've read a lot more economic text as well, but if you didn't know, my initial thought coming into this year, I accept recommendations all the time. I want to read pretty much I will read, if you've been watching the videos, like the book I'm going to talk about next is a completely different type of book than any of these things I just mentioned. But I wanted to read more economic text. U.S. economics, world economics, all those kind of things I've been reading. I've read a lot of that in this past year, and I've been happy to. I've been trying to increase my knowledge there, as I kind of said to some people, I hadn't picked up an economic textbook since high school, and yeah, I feel like I'm knowledgeable on it, but I wanted to just deepen my knowledge in it in different kind of ways. And these 7 books and all the other ones that I read this past year were definitely helped me with that. And those things are definitely surging through me now as I walk around everyday life and think about different things. Again, there's been a lot of books I've been reading the past few months, because even these books have given me recommendations, and I've started picking up books that have been talked about in here. So great things. Happy to have gotten through those 7. But yeah, we press forward with our next set of books. So we have book 60 for the year, and this is the 5th book of the month, is The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. Now, before I even talk about what I gave on the book and things like that, I wanted to read this book before seeing the movie. There's a movie adaptation of this film. It's in theaters right now with Amanda Seyfried starring. I heard about this being a very popular novel, and I was like, oh, I want to read this novel, but the library waiting list was so long, and it just happened that I literally got the access to the book a day or 2 after I saw the movie. It was like, oh wow, of course. So I liked the movie quite a lot. I gave that movie a 4 out of 5. I do 1-minute movie reviews. I'll link that below. You could watch that. I gave that a good review, and I even might see that movie again now that I know what I know. The book though, I gave it 3.5 out of 5, so pretty close. Again, I had hoped to watch it before seeing the film. I hoped to read it before seeing the film, but I kind of made it impossible. But liking the film as much as I did made me want to read it even more. So I literally just tore through this book in 2 or 3 days, kind of over the holidays. It was quite engaging, especially knowing what happened after seeing the film. I really wanted to get through the pages and see kind of how McFadden wrote it out. The book was good and engaging. It had some flaws. For me, some plot points stretched believability, and knowing the broad direction of the story in advance definitely shaped my reading experience, because I had already knew where parts 2 and 3 were headed. I found myself noticing details foreshadowing part 1 that I likely would not have had paid as much attention to otherwise, which is why I'm interested to maybe see the film again to look at certain things and see if I pick up on different things, yada yada. I kind of mentioned in my 1-minute movie review, I had thoughts of Gone Girl, the film by Fincher, and the books by Gillian Flynn. That book had similar, and the film had similar things of you see a situation and then we kind of go back in time to see what's actually happening. This book had a little bit of that, and I thought about that just a little bit, even though Gone Girl to me is exceptional. This book didn't reach that, but anyway, I'm diverting here. The book though, however, even though it had some flaws, definitely was a page turner to me. For me, it was 61 short chapters, really easy to get through. You would, especially when chapters are really short. I remember I had one night where I was up really late reading this book, and I was like, I gotta go to bed. But the next chapter was only 5 pages. I couldn't read it this quickly. And next, you keep doing it, and it's 5 pages add up to 25 pages, very quickly or whatever it is. That's what was happening to me. So I tore this book pretty quickly. And the story continued to build, and I acknowledge that some of the suspense and overall impact of the read for me would have been different if I had gone in blind. Like it didn't hit as much as it probably would have if I would have been completely just, unaware. But overall, it was an entertaining thriller and the first book in a series, which I'm still on the fence if I'm going to read these other Housemaid books. I know there's at least 2 or 3 more, or 1 or 2 more, whatever. I know there's like at least 3 in the series at this point, but I'm not sure if I'm going to read them. We'll just happen to see. But yeah, that was The Housemaid. It's nice to have a nice little like relaxing kind of book. I've wanted to. The last several books I've read have been kind of like heavy, and not even like heavy in like a. I've been heavy. Like the last book I actually read this year is called Heavy. We're gonna talk about that shortly. But this wasn't a light read by any means, but it was kind of like oh, it's fake. Okay, great. I can just pull myself out of it. And I need to soon read. I'm gonna be reading a novel soon in this 2026 period. I need a little bit of a levity, or just like some kind of like this is the fake situation because life is crazy. Anyway, that's The Housemaid. Next up, we have book 61 for the year of 2025, and this is the 6th book overall, is Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. This book was like literally 70 pages, got through it we drove down to South Carolina for a day, got through it in a day, like on that drive, and it was a great little, good little read. Claire Keegan is an author who I've read a couple books of before. I read So Late in the Day last year, which was excellent, a collection of stories. That was an excellent read. It's one of my last ones, I feel like, for the year, maybe I'm thinking of that wrong. And then Foster was another great one I read a couple years ago. That was adapted into a film called A Quiet Girl. That was just like an excellent, if you haven't seen that, watch that film, it's beautiful. So this book, was a film that I saw earlier this year as well. I did a 1-minute movie review on that as well. I'll tag that below. It stars Cillian Murphy. I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5. On my Goodreads. And it's a quiet, restrained story, and Claire Keegan's strength lies in her ability to say so much with very little. Again, 70 pages. Even thinking about again last year, So Late in the Day, that like little book that I grabbed in the library. I was like, I want to read just a quick little short book I can just get through. And that book literally packs such a punch. So excellent. She does so great with like these little gems that are just beautiful to read. The prose is spare and controlled and focusing on small moments rather than sweeping drama. It's a good, quick read rooted in a painful chapter of Irish history, and it feels important, and the moral question Keegan raises extend far beyond Ireland. This book is all about, I should have given some more context because my review didn't really fully, but let me just read what they kind of say about it. It is 1985 in a small Irish town. During the weeks leading up to Christmas, Bill Furlong, a coal merchant and family man, faces into his busiest season. Early one morning, while delivering an order to the local convent, Bill makes a discovery which forces him to confront both his past and the complicit silences of a town controlled by the church. Already an international bestseller, yada, 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 the book. So it's kind of about like he comes upon these women who are living in this like convent, this church, and they've been kind of mistreated, and like all these kind of like these women, and all these kind of things going on that are like not right at all. And it's true Irish history, I think, kind of like that happening. And then Claire Keegan gives a great book here about it. And the film is pretty good as well. I forget what I gave the film, but again, I'll tag the 1-minute movie review below. And good stuff. So that is Small Things Like These. All right, the last book for December 2025. The 62nd book for the year, so I read 62 books in 2025, and the 7th book overall for the month is a book that is heavy, and it's called Heavy, an American memoir by Kessie Lehman. This was a short book that I finished in 2-3 days, like 200 something pages. I didn't want to end on 61 books for the year. I want to end on an even number, so I said, let me get one more book. Let me do like one I can probably get through quickly. Even though I saw it was called Heavy, and I assumed that maybe it would be a little bit heavy. I was like, let me just get through and read it. And read it I did, and it was an excellent memoir, and it was one of my favorites for the year. I gave it a 5 out of 5 on Goodreads. I have a lot of quotes in this book that I've put in my reviews. I'm going to just like read from my review. As kind of already have been some of them, but here we go. It's an excellent read, and the book was just that, heavy. From the beginning, the ending, and everything in between are devastatingly intentional and beautifully crafted. This book doesn't read like a traditional memoir. It almost reads like poetry. Like from the, I'm gonna read the first, the way the book opens, and literally right away I was like, whew, we're in for it. He opens with a declaration that sets the tone for the entire book, and here it is. I did not want to write to you. I wanted to write a lie. I did not want to write honestly about black lies, black thighs, black loves, black laughs, black foods, black addictions, black stretch marks, black dollars, black words, black abuses, black blues, black belly buttons, black wins, black beans, black bends, black consent, black parents, or black children. I did not want to write about us. I wanted to write an American memoir. I wanted to write a lie. The you in this book is Lamon's mother, and this framing transforms the book into something deeply intimate, and it almost feels like a letter to her, this entire book. Another quote here, I wanted to write a lie. I wanted the lie to be titillating. I wrote that lie. It was titillating. You would have loved it. I discovered nothing. You would have loved it. I started over and wrote what we hoped I'd forget. Ooh, child, let me tell you. From the start, he refuses to smooth over his experience, refusing to lie about the realities of growing up Black in America, the dangers, the pleasures, the contradictions, and the weight of history he carries in his body. He writes honestly about Blackness in all complexity, love, laughter, pain, food, abuse, wins, and losses. It is an unflinching portrait of life as the Black man, a life shaped by the expectation and violence of the society around him, and by the love and struggles within his family. He writes beautifully about his grandmother and all those kind of things going on as well. The book also talks about the intersection of body, identity, and perception. I thought a little bit of Hunger by Roxane Gay that I read a few years ago that was excellent at times. While reading this book, Lamon explores what it means to inhabit a Black male body in a world that often sees it as a threat or commodity, reflecting on how he was shaped by environment, community, and generational trauma. He shows both vulnerability and toughness, capturing the tenderness of youth and the vigilance of survival. Lamon closes the book with, I wanted to write a lie. You wanted to read a lie. I wrote this to you instead because I am your child and you are mine. You are also my mother and I am your son. Please do not be mad at me, Mama. I am just trying to put you where I bend. I'm just trying to put us where we bend. Heavy is uncomfortable, it's tender and profoundly moving, and Lamon's voice lingers. I've just finished it today. I finished it literally the last day of the year as I wrote the review then, December 31st, 2025. I finished it today, as I said then, but I feel this way still, a week on, but I know this will be a book that stays with me and one I will want to revisit, even as I just quickly have in writing this review now, even as even saying this review again and reading those words, the way the book opens, the way the book closes. I remember when I finished the book, I literally read the end of the book again, like I read the last couple little paragraphs again, and shortly after I ended up writing this review as I wrote all the other ones, and it's just an excellent. It's just like I'm not sure if you can tell just from me just saying those words just then. It's just like. Woo. And again, when you phrase it and knowing, okay, you can kind of sense right away, but especially when it's clear that, okay, this is to his mother. Wow. An excellent book, one I highly recommend. I already have told some people about it and recommend reading it. It's an excellent, excellent book that I highly recommend. Again, 5 out of 5 I gave that book. And that was my last book for the year, 62 overall. And yeah, that is the close. So yeah, those are my December books. As I always will mention, follow me on Goodreads. We're in 2026 now, we have another challenge to meet, more books to get through, those kind of things. I have written as you know, if you're watching this, I record these every time I have at end of a month, talk about the books I've read and kind of go over them. So you can go on my YouTube playlist. This should be on the YouTube playlist already, so you might be able to see it in the playlist of everything that I've been reading and things like that. Also, I've written a whole list of the books I've read. I've highlighted my favorites, certain books that have adaptations, like film adaptations or TV adaptations I say you should watch. That's all there. You can find that all on my Facebook page. I'll link all those things below. You can find that on my link tree to find all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's all up there. You can find that all there. I might even put a graphic here of my little thing of everything I've read. But yeah, that's December 2025. That's how we closed out the year. Again, we go forward with 2026 in our next, we'll be back for another book video after January ends. But thanks so much. Send me recommendations. I don't have an overall goal this year in terms of like, of course I have an overall goal number, but I keep that low. That way I can kind of just like meet it and not have any, I put it by my age every year pretty much. I don't have any specific things in terms of like this year I want to read a lot of economic text. I probably will continue that on, but I'll read anything that people recommend and stuff like that. So send that along. Follow me on Goodreads. Follow the Facebook. You can see all the books I read. Follow this playlist to see the books as they're coming out. But yeah, good stuff. Let's wrap it up. It's been kind of long. Thanks so much for the support so far. And we'll see you guys in the next book video or whatever kind of video comes out. It's film award season right now, so it's really busy for films right now, and I love films, and that's been really going great. So yeah, all this, but we'll see you guys somewhere on the YouTube channel or wherever else you happen to find me. So thanks so much for watching. Have a good one. Happy New Year, everyone.